For one entire month, I decided to speedrun the original Crash Bandicoot 80% category to see how good I could become in this short time span. For this month's challenge, I decided to create a series of goals to achieve that become exponentially harder in order to provide motivation until the end of the challenge. Before watching the full video, comment below with your guess as to which medal I finished the challenge with. Keep in mind, I had only casually beaten this game and then performed one speedrun of it prior to this 1 month challenge. The first real challenge that any new speed game offers is simply learning the basic movement through each level of the game, and how to not generally die. This proved especially difficult for casually difficult levels like Native Fortress, Lost City, Sunset Vista, Heavy Machinery, and Slippery Climb. These 5 levels were a cut above the rest in terms of difficulty, at least from a beginner's perspective, and I simply needed to practice these individual levels in order to improve my overall time. 57:33, just under an hour, marked my starting point for personal bests in this game during the challenge. This run was just consistently better in every way compared to my first ever speedrun, and I managed to not die in Native Fortress, Lost City, and Slippery Climb. Major time losses still happened in Sunset Vista and Heavy Machinery, but consistency would quickly improve. On day 2 of the challenge, I had already cleaned up those last 2 stains on my 57:33 and PB'd again with a 52:37, a huge PB that largely happened just from getting used to the game's movement and mechanics. But how do I improve from here? No more huge time saves from deaths other than in a couple places in the run. Crash 1 has an old-fashioned movement system that appears very basic at first glance. You can move in 8 directions, basically whatever the PS1 D-pad will allow. This is made infinitely more complicated by the information that Crash moves slightly faster diagonally. This means that if I can move diagonal as much as possible in the run, then I will be faster. However, all of Crash 1's stages are mostly straight lines, and that means if I want to move optimally throughout the game, I need to switch diagonal inputs while in the air as quickly as possible to maintain a path of straightness while also maintaining diagonal speed. This technique of rapid diagonal inputs is known as zigzagging.
My hands! They're fine.
Learning this technique is not only somewhat painful, but also required me to rethink how I wanted to approach this speedrun. Suddenly, all platforming in the game was going to be exponentially more difficult now because of the much larger quantity of inputs needed to perform at a high level. Not to mention that I probably would need to space out practice and runs somewhat in order to protect my hands from injury due to zigzag inputs.
I'm gonna stretch my hands. I think this is a game where if you don't stretch your hands, you're going to suffer, because it's just like, the zigzag on your thumb is not okay. There's no way that's good for arthritis.
In order to help with future hand pains, I decided to learn multiple zigzag techniques to relieve the zigzag load throughout the run on any one part of my hand or arm. For forward moving zigzag, I decided to play the PS1 controller like a keyboard, allowing for multiple fingers to do the work. Left and right zigzag were accomplished by utilizing my entire arm to move my arm up and down quickly to get good zigzag inputs. Lastly, downward zigzag relied entirely on my thumb, jiggling it back and forth. Even though the downward zigzag always hurt a little, I simply could not do it any other way. Luckily, I only needed to downward zigzag in 2 levels throughout the entire run. Day 3 and 4 saw some minor improvements, achieving a 51:42 time, but I knew that zigzagging alone would easily make a sub 50 minute time doable, achieving my first medal in the speedrun. Day 5 proved to be the breakthrough day.
Alrighty.
To put it simply, I was starting to not suck ass. A few unintentional deaths here and there, but only a couple of minutes were lost across the entire run. No deaths in Generator Room.
Yeah, that was really good.
And Slippery Climb, plus improved movement across the board, allowed me to clutch out a sub 50-minute run.
Let's fucking go, dude!
Achieving the bronze medal with 25 days remaining in the challenge. One other unusual part of this speedrun that I started implementing around this time was death abuse. Crash 1 speedrunning is greatly sped up with death abuse because of two major parts of the game: cycles and the box counting screen at the end of each level. Death abuse not only allows the player to reset local and global cycles at any individual checkpoint, but also you don't have to watch the box counting screen if you die after hitting a checkpoint in the level. This means you can kill two birds with one stone by doing an intentional death in most levels in the game. The amount of time death abuse saves is hard to quantify, but this does mean that sometimes I will do weird backtracking in order to die efficiently. It also means that I needed to learn the correct checkpoint to die at to achieve optimal cycles. Day 6 and 8 had some nice small PBs, but still outside of striking distance of the sub 47 silver medal. The toll of zigzag was starting to get the best of me. To put it simply, the DS1 controller I was using was not only bad for zigzag, but it also made my hands literally bleed. I was dying on the speedrun battlefield out here. I needed to come up with a solution to this problem, or risk needing to take an extended break from the game, effectively ruining the challenge. On day 9, my new original PS1 white controller arrived, recommended by the legend himself, Tet W. With this, I immediately leveled up and got a huge new PB. Better and more consistent zigzag across the board really helped bring my confidence back into runs. That silver medal was looking nice, but I realized that sub 45 now seemed completely reasonable and possible. I simply needed to refine my movement in each individual level, and learn cycles that I could now go for thanks to the new controller. To do this, I watched through Tet W's any percent PB to pick up on certain cycles and tricks I could go for in my own runs. I sat down and grinded out Insanity Beach. I grinded out Great Gate God Cycle, which proved to be a bit too hard, but I learned my own slower cycle that I could hit with reasonable consistency. I started literally wearing bandages on my hands to protect my hands better. I learned faster movement in Lost City, which was terrifying because a death here meant instant reset. I learned better cycles in Temple Ruins, but most importantly, I learned the Sunset Vista skywalks. The hardest level in the game becomes trivialized in any percent by learning these two unusual skywalk glitches that you can perform to skip more than half of the stage. This not only saved a significant amount if performed well, but it was much easier than just playing through the level. To explain the trick as simply as possible, Crash spawns at the correct coordinate in order to glitch upwards, so don't move up or down at the beginning in order to do this trick consistently. Secondly, you simply need to be spinning as you are pushed off of the stage by the pusher to enter the skywalk state. Then just jump straight up until you reach the ceiling of the stage and walk across to victory. You need to come down from the ceiling at the end of any straightaway to progress further in the level, but then you simply skywalk again once you reach the lizard checkpoint. Hit the checkpoint, respawn by dying, then simply jump spin 4 times before reaching the pusher. As you cross the pusher, spin again and the cycle lines up such that you will immediately get pushed off into the skywalk again. With all of this new knowledge in mind, I started doing runs on day 11. Runs were rocky for a bit, and some really weird game mechanics were ending runs. Consistency was getting better, but the runs simply hadn't happened yet. Days 11 through 13 simply proved to be mentality checks, as mistake after mistake would end good runs, and I often would find myself trapped on Island 1 frequently, because of the consistency the run now demanded of me. Day 14 proved to be a huge breakthrough though. I managed to hit all of the new movement and tricks, putting me well ahead out of Sunset Vista. I then proceeded to clean up the end of the run nicely to get a huge 45.05 PB.
Let's fucking go, man.
6 seconds away from the gold medal. And with 16 days left in the challenge, I had plenty of time to spare. With motivation high yet again, I continued to do runs with great vigor in hopes of reaching this difficult bar I had set for myself. On day 16, I finally completed a mostly clean any percent run. Everything was going well through Ripperoo, and I was feeling relatively confident. However, some close calls in the Lost City and Temple Ruins cost me a bit of time.
What the fuck?
Alright, that's really bad. At least we made that. Oof, that was insanely close to dying, but that's good.
But very luckily, not the entire run. I hit most of the time save in Road to Nowhere, but another close call in Boulder Dash nearly... okay, we're still good. Lost a chunk in Sunset Vista, but managed to hit both skywalks flawlessly. Defeating Kong meant that I now was on my best pace ever out of the middle island. How would Cortex Island treat me? Heavy machinery and Cortex power went well because I played very safe, and generator room went better than it ever had. Toxic waste and pinstripe were free as usual, so the home stretch lay ahead.
Alright, here we go.
High Road is just a stage of close calls, but I clutch out another gold, and then another one in Slippery Climb. It seemed like nothing was going to stop this absolute pacer. Jaws of Darkness was another gold, and it truly just came down to the lab because Brio and Cortex are fairly free and consistent. The lab, yet again, was another gold. This run was truly a dream, and I could not have asked for something better after just over 2 weeks of runs.
Yes! Fuck yes, dude!
The gold medal on my list of self-achievements was already mine, and the impossible medal now seemed somehow possible with 2 weeks to go in the challenge. More strats were needed, but surely I would adapt quickly as I had already proven capable of doing. Right? I started out by learning how to do this jump off of the leaf in Upstream, saving about 30 seconds. Then I practiced skipping the fire cycles in Temple Ruins. Both of these tricks saved minimal time overall, but made the run much harder. I also learned how to do Slippery Climb much faster, but required me to zigzag well throughout. All of these new tricks saved at most 30 seconds, but I also was slowly getting better at the rest of the game the more runs I did. Thus, I continued with runs on day 18 and struggled badly to get anywhere in runs until day 20, when I found my way back to Slippery Climb only to get absolutely owned by my lack of understanding of the new movement and cycles. Day 22 saw 2 more paces into or past Lights Out that could both PB. One was literally minus 41 into heavy machinery. But still, PBs eluded me. Days 23 through 27 were filled with terrible runs. I was starting to feel hopeless, like I would never PB again. But then, on day 28, I broke through. The run was everything I could have hoped for through heavy machinery, minus 45 almost. But I was overconfident in Cortex power and managed to die in the dumbest way.
No!
Golds and generator room, toxic waste, the high road, slippery climb, and lights out made the run look amazing yet again as I hit all of the movement I had been practicing. Finally, a run that would at least sub 44. I lost a good chunk in the easy levels because I was nervous, and only the lab stood in my way of getting a sub 44. And I messed up this box hit, which screwed me on this cycle, and I didn't realize it in time, so I died, losing almost the entire run. Luckily, I played on to clutch out a 4-second PB.
I split late, it doesn't really matter to me. Hey guys, we PB'd for the first time in 12 days. You know what? I'll take it, man. I'll take it. Ah, man, what a roller coaster of a run. It was all over the place, man.
44-19, after correcting the late split. This run was extremely disappointing, and I knew I could have done so much more with it. Unfortunately, this was my last real chance at a PB, and I didn't get another chance through the end of the challenge. The impossible goal, in the end, proved to be just that, impossible. But the challenge was definitely a huge success, and I am proud of all of the challenges I needed to overcome to become better. I think I found a method for zigzag that worked well for me, even if it wasn't necessarily optimal. Even though I didn't fully understand why I kept losing my jump inputs, I at least pressed on regardless, despite the frustration the speedrun brought. Many months later, I came back to Crash 1 any percent to finally get a nice 43-22 PB. And I am happy that I can occasionally return to this game now to push for even better times. This speedrun was one that I initially disliked because of the difficulty of zigzagging, but eventually I came to enjoy. Speedrunning can be weird like that sometimes. You may not necessarily like speedrunning a game at first, but once you start to fully grasp and understand the mechanics of the game better, it becomes fun. You just never know until you try. Thank you so much to all of you who watched until the end of the video. I would really appreciate it if you also subscribed, liked, and left a comment to help me reach YouTube partner. I plan to pump out the remaining 1-month challenge videos from last year, so look forward to more content like this soon. The next speedrun challenge I did was Crash Team Racing any percent, no major glitches. This was LogicPQ. Thanks for watching.